Okay, so I'm here on my walking treadmill. It's what I do for my health. I'm on my desk, walking treadmill desk. So my computers are in front of me. Um, this kind of sucks. So there we go. So I do this from time to time. There's my chair. It's a very nice steel case, very comfortable, padded, highly padded chair. A Mia. I can sit on that for a long period of time without getting any numbness or feeling any of the effects of long-term sitting. Well, subjectively, I do feel that at a certain point where I've really been sitting for a long time, or if I just don't feel so well. And actually, in those times, walking really helps to change the mode that my body's in. So I don't know, it's a little bit more complicated than it is simple to describe or talk about, and because it is in context of my emotional challenge that I have, psychological challenge, so a little bit more intrusive to openly state. You never know who is watching this online. And so, but yeah, that aside from, anything that I really want to talk about, the main thing that I wanted to talk about is about how things are different in our world and how that translates into where we are as a society. And I think it's really hard to kind of see things in context of like the current present now, because I think oftentimes people might entertain a mindset that is a little bit premature instead of like present. We kind of like move forward, especially if it's something that's not so pleasant. We kind of want to move past it or even ignore it sometimes, which is totally not something that I'm against. I mean, there are some times where emotionally it doesn't help to introspect or to focus sometimes, especially in context of like very, very painful emotional experiences. It's hard to kind of look back on those without experiencing pain. So there is this inherent limitation, I think, as humans that we have in terms of consciousness or being consciously aware. And it is very much tied into our individual unique ability or our own individual kind of level of tolerance. So that all being said, I really wanted to talk about immigration, like, where we are and how there's a lot of opposition towards this idea that Joe Biden introduced with his new bill, this new immigration bill. And so I think Joe Biden, like a lot of people, first of all, they kind of talk down about him. But I mean, in a very parallel way, not in a negative sense, but in a very parallel way, he is doing a lot of things that people ridicule him for. But those things are necessary to be done. It wouldn't matter if it was him or another president. Kind of the state of science is where we are as a society, kind of direct or guide what actions need to be taken in order to kind of march on into, a future that is reasonably stable, or, something that we want to live in versus something that we don't want anything to do with. Like, for example, we don't want to live in a society that's governed by irrationality, or that's governed by nonsense, or we want to live in a society that is just not just out of its mind. And so I think everyone agrees with that. But anyways, in terms of like immigration policy and the bigger scope of where we are as a society, as like from a global sense, but also including different variables like the state of climate change, like, for example, extreme states of heat, where just right now, there are certain parts in the United States, especially the eastern side, where those areas are just inherently more humid compared to the western states. And when it gets hot, when it gets like 100 degrees in those areas where it's high humidity, it doesn't hit like 100 degrees. Like if it's 120 degrees in a high humid area, it'll hit like 150 degrees. And that's more specific to how our body like cools down. We sweat, the sweat accumulates in our body, it evaporates, and as it evaporates, it has this cooling effect to our body. But if we're just in this drenched, saturated environment that's super humid, a lot of moisture in the air, our bodies cannot cool down that way. So it's effectively a lot hotter than, like, what the actual temperature is. It's much, much hotter in terms of human body regulation. So yeah, we have extreme weather events happening, not just in the United States, but all over the place. And it's forecast to get worse, especially some of the more vulnerable areas might be low-lying islands. They're not very much, they're very close to sea level. Those areas, they're going to be greatly impacted in the future of climate change, or estimated to be greatly impacted. Aside from climate change, the challenges that come from that, the human survival challenges that come from that, we also have, we have a lot of societal level problems going on. And I think it doesn't make sense to, especially in an area where it's experiencing some of the worst problems, and like, for example, in Iran, or maybe anywhere in the Middle East. I don't know specific areas that are more within conflict, but places that have a higher degree of conflict, where people, rationally, the good person, or the people that are, I don't know what to say, the good people, people that are genuinely afraid for their lives, living in those kind of conditions, societal conditions. It doesn't make sense to say that you cannot seek refuge coming from the worst places in the world. I mean, it makes sense from this idea that, well, how can we prove they're good or bad? We can't prove them. We can't vet them, whether if they're a terrorist, or if they're what they say, what they're saying is correct, and they genuinely want to live free of this continual fear of death. There's in those areas, there's not really a government system that is highly organized in comparison to what we have here in the United States of America, or other developed places in the world. It's very different. It's very disorganized. So to have this requirement of proof, and for the people that want to migrate into America, for people that are fleeing for their lives that want to come to America, to require this degree of proof from them that just simply can't exist, won't ever exist, especially from the worst areas in those areas, like maybe some rural areas where you might have more terrorism going on. You have some farmer living somewhere, and they experience the hardships of that social conflict. They can't, they're around a lot of bad people, I guess. I don't know how to say it. They're around a lot of conflict, and to deny that person, this sense of, we will help you. Like, this is the worst area in the world, we will help you. To deny them of help, it doesn't make sense. I don't know how else. I'm not very good at wording stuff sometimes, but the people that need the most help are not going to get it, and that is an inherent reality that comes with this perspective that's running around in our government, that we need proof of who they are, otherwise we don't know. And so I don't know how else to guarantee this sense of safety, that we're going to be allowing people in our country that are not going to be hurting the United States. there's really, you can't. So it's a very conflicting or very troubling situation where you can't have it both ways. You kind of have to almost take a leap of faith and trust in this idea that goodness will prevail. And it's really hard to do that, I think, especially on this massive level where you have millions and millions of people coming in from all around the world into the United States under kind of a very similar pretext. And whatever it might be, climate related, maybe government instability, maybe terrorism, civil unrest, whatever it might be. There's a lot of people all around the world that are experiencing, unique to their area problems. And so, and it just, what Biden did with his immigration bill was, he gave people that kind of the benefit of the doubt, that idea, that promise of, we will help you. He gave that to them, but at the expense of, we can't guarantee that they're not going to be really bad people coming in. And then Donald Trump, he kind of came in and did the opposite. He said, we don't want anybody coming into America unless they can be proven. And simultaneously, he's denying the people that need the most help. So they're two kind of sides of the same coin. And, I don't know how else to, I think that if we side on this idea of choosing moral correctness or choosing what's morally right and just starting from that first step rather than, starting off. And I think that's actually a step that both of the presidents started off on. They started off on that morally correct step, but then it's the next step and the next step after that. I think ultimately, choosing the side of what's morally right, it also boils down to, personal perception, what you entertain as, from the bigger scope of things. And, not as humans, we are very subject to bias, our own interpretation of the world around us. And I think it's hard for us to play judge, and in the sense of, human dignity, or human rights. It's hard for us to be judge with a sense of, it's the best way. We can't do that as humans. We have limitations and it's, some people, it varies from person to person. So if there could be a path that kind of is in the middle in between the two extremes, and I think that is that's much better than this very rigid one side versus the other side approach. And so when I hear arguments that especially from Arnold Schwarzenegger, he recently gave an argument on this idea of immigration reform and how it should be based on the sense of understanding and empathy. I think that's a really good step. And maybe it's easy to get lost in your steps and kind of maybe be overly negative, or even on the opposite end, be overly positive and just kind of lose this sense of where things actually are, lose sight of, certain aspects of the circumstance. So it's hard to weigh in everything. It's hard to, it's hard to take a step back and look at the big picture. But yeah, I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I didn't know who to vote for, because ultimately I just don't know anyone that really resonates with my beliefs, with my core values and my core beliefs. At least not anyone that's that's really in a leading position. So yeah, I did vote for someone that is that he is applying the newest information that we have, medical science-based information that we have regarding nutrition, and he it's not a very common diet. I mean, it's growing in popularity, but people also too, they kind of have their own interpretation of what it means, and it kind of, the actual substance of the diet kind of gets lost in a whole bunch of relative ambiguity, I guess. It's just, I believe this, I believe that. Who knows what is what? You don't really know, what it actually is. So I don't know, but yeah, this I think he's I forgot his name, but yeah, he was applying new science, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I've been doing for myself, especially in regards to my own health, and it has worked. It has, where I am now is very different than I was uh, just even a short while ago, and it's hard to kind of think about because it does raise a degree of alarm and stress to kind of look at things from a critical eye. The way that I usually like to think about it is more of kind of, I am here in my present now, and I'm not really weighing my now versus something else in the past. I'm weighing my experience currently. And even though my experience is currently, it can be very difficult, um, uh, there are times where it's really great. And there's this rhythm to my experience. It comes and it goes. I don't know, maybe it's part of the bipolar side of what I was diagnosed with, but I don't really view it from that very mechanical sense. I view it as more, there's more to it. There's color to my daily experiences that influence me emotionally and physically. And so yeah, every day is kind of a new experience, I guess, or the potential for a new experience. And yeah, so I've been practicing this dietary and lifestyle change for regularly for some time now. I'm not, even though I'm practicing it, I'm not consistent with it because there's some challenges that I face with it. And so, but I try to do the best that I can. And sometimes the best that I can means to not even think about it and just kind of take it where it goes, where it takes me from there. And sometimes it's not very great where it takes me. It's very difficult, sometimes very stressful. And I could feel it. I could really feel this kind of building emotional state of like emotional, psychological. It's just challenging for me emotionally and physically. I could feel that state kind of building over time. And but I do have this ability, or this option right over here that, hey, look, I could try. I feel a little bit more motivated to trying this thing again, and so I try it. And maybe I'm learning how to cook at the same time, and I'm learning food combination. I'm learning my own, like, kind of my own limits to how much of this food I could eat or how much of this food I could eat. And so I'm kind of getting used to this new diet, and it's becoming something that's more easy to manage, very similar to how I used to eat food, whereas you just don't think about it, you just eat. And so yeah, that it's I kind of want to get there, but on the more stricter version, the more appropriate to my emotional, physical needs version of the diet, and which is, but it's hard. I think there's a lot of social influences that affect me, especially in my family, but it's more from a bigger kind of common social belief that's more of like on a societal scale. And so, but that trickles down to on the family level. And so, yeah, I feel the effects of that. And it's challenging. And, it also requires, a sense of the emotional betterment requires the sense of, I guess, community or having a place. And it's kind of hard to move into that direction when there's a sense of like there's too much differences that are I guess dividing. And so yeah, it's really hard. There's a lot of information too online that they promote basically diets that people believe in. And I was practicing actually a different diets throughout my experience. And I don't know, I guess I practiced kind of a very meat heavy diet, a lot of raw dairy. So raw milk, raw cheese, maybe raw cream, and a lot of meat, especially raw meat. And I think I don't know. I was practicing that for a bit, and I think I really got messed up from that. I might have gotten some kind of parasite or something. It really messed up my natural appetite. But also there was a lot of other stuff that I was doing with diet, a lot of different things happening, and so I'm not really sure how to weigh what's causing what. But yeah, I've gone through different diets, and I kind of know the extremes of what's out there, and I've tried those extremes, and it's easier to identify now. I guess after learning a lot, like reading a lot of very specific stuff, especially through studies like clinical trials. It always helps to kind of like see the individual story and kind of, be inspired by that. That's usually how a lot of dietary books that I've read were inspiring. And I'll tell you, it's like another level when you see that happening on this massive scale where there's like thousands of people all doing it together and they're all experiencing these benefits at the same time. There's a degree of like, I don't know, security or trust, or this greater sense of that's the sure thing. There's the sense that comes with those kind of large scale uh, uh, um, those large scale things, studies that yeah, I don't know. So yeah, so I don't know how to talk about science. I feel like there's a lot of opposition towards science without any really genuine, like I've researched science for a long period of time and then I have developed a strong sense of criticism towards something specific. Um, uh, I don't even know what I just said. But there's a lot of criticism out there without this kind of like substance behind it. It's just kind of like you build your ideas are built on maybe what you've read in a book, which I think it's good to be open-minded to some to the open-minded to reading stuff and just not being in complete opposition, just but entertaining a degree of open-mindedness, even after you don't believe in something all the way, but still kind of there could be something there that maybe could be apparent later on that you might not recognize right now. So like the learning process isn't really like this right now state of mind. It's more of like this over this long period of time and being able to look back and recognize and remember and realize connections, and kind of create this bigger understanding. Uh, and so I really like that way of learning. When I read a study, I don't like the very robotic reading it one at a time. I simply don't have the tolerance to read that way, everything in order. I focus on what immediately my needs are, especially if I'm under some kind of thing that's psychologically or physically challenging. It's easier to focus on things that really pop out to me and then just read that sentence and then skim it and read something else, and then by then I've kind of absorbed like a good amount, a few points throughout the study, and then really that's kind of what guides me in terms of like what section I want to read next. And so maybe I read a section, I realize I don't really understand this, so I have to go back to here to see what this means over here, and then I kind of have this interest to read this over here to understand this, and then before I know it, I've read the whole entire study and I've absorbed it. That's the thing, is that I've learned it in my own way, where it's not just like this mechanical learning. It's this like I'm really absorbing it. And so I never learned to read that way. I mean, in school you can't really read that way. You have to kind of read stuff in order relating to what you're doing in class. And so yeah, but also too, this way of reading also was partly how I developed the ability to read really, really fast. And just, it's not so much about reading fast, just like you read it once, also. You read it just like once, and then you got it. It's like you don't have to read it again through this like almost hypnotic state of mind of trying to learn something. You're resonating with it, you see it, and you that's in my mind. I'm focused on that completely. So it's a very different way of reading, of learning overall. And I really like that way of learning. It's very stimulating. And so yeah, I even devoted a lot of money towards improving my monitor. I got an HD 4K monitor, so I could really pull up a big huge version of like this a report, and I just really blow it up, make it really large, so I could be here walking on my walking treadmill and just read this large lettered page that's right in front of me. And also too, like my neck position for like in prolonged periods of time, if I'm looking down like too prematurely low, it doesn't feel right, especially with like the natural the monitor stand that comes with this. So I have this monitor arm, it's back here, and that thing is so great. It's so great. It's so easy to just one-handedly change. It's hard to do with one. Usually this monitor is a little bit different. I just got a new monitor. This one's 4K, by the way. 4K 166 hertz gaming monitor, but it's really good. The pixel separation is really close to each other, so the words, they don't look like an OLED, the typical OLED screen where the words are not so, like the L is not so straight, it's a little bit off, just a little bit. Lines are a little bit off, so letters look a little bit off. My monitor is really good. So yeah, it's really easy to change, especially make like little minor position changes. Like if I feel strain in my neck, like I'm looking down too much, and I just like move up like this, and I feel a little bit of relief changing my head position, I could match my monitor position according to where I'm physically at. I've also been wearing this a lot lately. I don't want to accidentally fall. So I have this. This is this heating. It's a heating blanket, but it goes over my shoulders and it heats my whole back. I have a neck injury, and it's been kind of up and down lately. And so, but yeah, wearing that heat pad, especially walking and wearing it, it really gets my circulation is going from walking, and then the heat is flowing through that heating blanket into my neck, and then double circulation going. If I do that, every day for like 10-15 minutes, I don't want to do too much. I recently learned why I don't want to do it too much. And so I started really, instead of going with the natural programming that thing has, like 2 hours and just putting it on and forgetting it, it'll turn off automatically. I'm not going with the programming anymore. I'm going with my doctor's, the medical recommendation, which is 10 to 15 minutes. And then doing that frequently throughout the day, not just like one time, but a sense of regularity. And so, yeah, like if I have some neck pain that's starting to come on for any reason, I'll just put that on. I have it right there, have it all set up really easy to connect, and I'll start using it, and it really improves significantly my physical state of well-being overall. And so before, like I was like, when I was going through a little bit more of some delusions, and I would get that neck discomfort that kind of runs down my back. I would feel like the tension, like going down my back all the way into my collarbones, and I would feel like this, like kind of like tense, or not tense, this like pinching, like this like a needle, almost like a poking sensation at my collarbones on both sides, actually, on this side and on this side. And it would be like this, just this feeling. It's just like, and I would focus on where it was hurting, and it would be like right in the area, right where I would imagine if I had angel wings, that's where those areas, that's the area that it would be. And so, I was, I don't know, I like to be open to entertaining, allowing myself to entertain whatever ideas, cross my mind, whatever it might be, from an open mind rather than just this immediate sense of kind of like smashing it out of there, so I don't have to deal with delusions or kind of walking down the path to where I'm starting to experience even worse delusions and like I start to hallucinate things, like start hearing voices. It really could kind of start going in a bad direction. But what I've been doing is a bit different. I've been entertaining this sense of like open-mindedness towards my experience, and I think it really helps a lot, actually. Especially it helps me not feel so alarmed when I experience any kind of thought that I identify as like an intrusive, potential delusion or hallucination type of kind of thinking. And it really is a very different mindset. And I realized a while ago that mindset might be beneficial for me, from my own theory behind it. And I don't know how to talk about that, but yeah, it's something that I've learned over time, and or things that I've learned over time, and I just kind of thought of, hey, that might be a good idea to try that. I've been trying that, and I like it. I like not being in the state of alarm when I experience something that's that I know has that that's like the starting of something, the starting down towards a path. And I don't even really see the path anymore. And so there's that, where just by association, you associate something as something stressful. So when you experience it, that stress association is kind of there. But I've kind of been distancing myself with that stress association, from that stress association. And so yeah, there's not such a strong association with thinking things that used to have a strong association with stress. So yeah, just that little thing makes a big difference. Also too, like focusing back on my computer setup. So another thing that I do to help me out, there's one speaker, there's another speaker, there's my kind of sound processing area, my amplifier, and my digital audio converter. So these speakers, the sound system, I spent a lot of money on it. And I did so because from my experience of listening to TV or speakers, whatever it might be, car music, sometimes I don't hear something clearly, or sometimes a word sounds like something else. And that happens all the time in songs. Someone will be singing a song and they think part of the lyrics are something, but in reality, it sounded like that was the lyrics, but that's not the lyrics. It's a little bit different. And so it really makes a difference when you're listening to high quality sound, in terms of what you perceive. The nuances to the sound really make a difference in your listening experience. And whether, for me, like, it really makes a big difference. But I think it doesn't come without the mindset that I've been entertaining or encouraging for myself. I need to pause for a second. Okay, so yeah, I'm walking here 2 miles per hour, which is a good pace. I used to walk a little bit slower, but I wanted to start increasing my speed. 2 miles an hour, at least at 2 miles per hour. And that's relating to something I heard. I forgot what lady, someone on YouTube or some other platform, was listening to what they were saying about it. Maybe it was Huberman, or I forgot exactly who, but yeah, 2 miles per hour was that ideal speed where you get the benefits from physical exercise, from walking specifically, are more pronounced. And so, but I think in general, walking is at any pace. I used to have knee pain and maybe some foot pain, and sometimes I have that from time to time, or neck pain. And walking slower is something that I adjust to that speed, because that's something that I could do without experiencing any kind of discomfort. And so I play it by ear. I do it like that. And so anyways, my sound system, it really, I think, in my experience at least, it really changes my listening experience overall, especially in context of thinking something that I thought that I heard that, or especially in context of it being potentially like being words that I associate as part of, that I identify, that I know as part of dialogue that's been common in my symptoms for my specific mental illness. And so hallucinations specifically is what I'm talking about. More specifically, audible hallucinations, where you hear a voice or you imagine you're hearing a voice maybe, but you're not sure if you heard it or not. So that little thought, you thought you heard it, but you're not sure, that actually is a trigger sometimes for really starting to hear stuff that's not really there. Like I'll be listening to like maybe a conference on TV, and I'm really listening to those little bits that are part of the audio track. That's not really part of this, what the speaker is speaking. But I don't know how to talk about it. But basically, I could really start hearing stuff it's completely different. It's like I just fallen into an alternate universe, and I'm no longer in my reality anymore. I'm listening to this other reality, and it's not very nice. Actually, it can be it can be very painful, emotionally assaulting, emotionally harsh, very very emotionally hurtful kind of dialogue happens in that world, I guess. And so yeah, actually for a period of time, I just did away with all my music, all my speakers, just giving myself some space from music. Not like, if I'm experiencing delusions in context of listening to music, why can't I just turn off the music and then, maybe not have that specific source for experiencing hallucinations? Why can't I just take that one step for myself? And I think that's where the important part is that taking that one step, of empowerment, saying that you could turn it off versus, it doesn't matter, or it's not really going to change anything. But it's just that little bit of kind of almost like it's self-respect, or you're in charge. You can make this little difference. You can turn it off if you need to. If you're hearing stuff that's causing you to feel bad, how hard is it to just turn it off? You just turn it off. You might start having the hallucinations come from different areas, especially I think if you want it. And I think maybe it's even hard to identify that you kind of want it. Maybe it's easier to identify that you really want it when it's really going away, in context of like maybe increasing your medication and kind of feeling a little bit resistant towards that idea. And maybe even then it's not really something that is completely clear to you. Like you could word it in that way. Because actually in the opposite way, you might feel very strongly about not having that experience because it's so terrible, so difficult. And so, but yeah, I think I had the awareness of both, and I think it's reasonable just to go with that and kind of imagine that that's just how people might feel. I don't know. So it's hard to talk for other people. But yeah, sound makes a significant difference in my ability to learn, receive information from spoken word through YouTube or wherever it comes from, social media platforms. And so yeah, I really invested in this idea of sound clarity. And if it's more than just my idea behind it. If you subscribe to some of these more high-end, high-quality audio streaming services, like there's I don't know, you could do Spotify, you could do Amazon Music. They offer a higher tier, which gives you a higher bit rate, which basically means that the quality of the music or the sound is going to be very high quality. Or like Tidal is another high-end sound streaming service. You could also get podcasts. There's a lot of spoken podcasts on there, spoken word podcasts, especially in context of like topics like diet and nutrition. A lot of stuff is out there like that. A lot of stuff to absorb. And a lot of interesting stuff. I like listening to Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's great, really funny. I love that. I love that podcast. And so yeah. But also too, you have these high quality streaming services. You can't really get the best audio quality sound unless you have a setup that's able to receive and send out that signal to your speakers. And it's a little bit technical to set it up so you get the highest quality sound possible, because sometimes you could have the highest, you could have a service that gives that streaming to you high quality sound, but it can't convert it. You don't have the conversion set up in your computer to send it out, to send the high quality signal to your digital audio converter and then have it amplified by an amplifier that also is very clean, has very low, I think, I forgot what it's called, sound floor or noise. So like the higher you turn up the sound, the more distorted it gets, or the harder it is to really perceive spoken word. When you have a high-end amplifier, you could turn it up really, really loud, but you don't lose that clarity. It doesn't get muddled or unintelligible. It still holds that degree of pristine clarity. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where I could, if I don't hear something clearly, I could turn it up a little bit more. I really hear it then, and there's no distortion that comes along with that increase in volume. So yeah, I did spend a lot of money. I think I already said that, on my sound system, and it took me a while to research what I really wanted. But yeah, I ended up getting what I thought was affordable and yet very high quality. So yeah, I also have a sound bar for my TV. I never listen to my TV speakers anymore. If I want to watch something and I don't want to experience any of that, I'm not sure what I heard, the word didn't sound very clearly, or it's not very intelligible, my sound bar, no problem with that. I don't even experience any kind of hallucinations anymore when watching TV. But also too, it's in context of overall the bigger picture of what I'm doing in my life, with diet change, with this this emotional kind of sense that I'm trying to practice, lifestyle, like being physically active, that helps me feel better. It's everything in context working together. That's what I'm doing. So I have a lot of hiking equipment up there. I've been trying to save up money and work a little bit more recently and buy a lot of gear that'll enable me to be able to spend time in nature and experience some of the mental health benefits that comes with spending some time in nature. So yeah, I really kind of have my lifestyle, or I'm setting myself up to have a lifestyle that I'm really having that lifestyle now, or I'm going to have it soon enough. So yeah, maybe even that translates, like my mentality that I have now translates into the kind of sound system that I would be looking for in a vehicle, whether in contrast, whether I would just be open to accept any kind of like standard sound system, or looking for a future vehicle that has something more premium. And most definitely, I know the premium sound like brands that are out there now. I'm very familiar with them, so I am able to identify when a car has something very, very high premium that I know would be a more appropriate listening experience in my specific situation. And so, I don't know, I'm also trying to communicate this sense of like, hey, I'm doing this and it's working for me. And, I don't know if it's going to work for you though, but, maybe it's something that might be interesting to maybe, give it a try, especially if you're coming from like listening to sound from, but I don't know. It's so this idea of wanting it to go away, I don't feel right with that idea, wanting the hallucinations to go away. I don't feel right with it. And so, because it does hold a place of meaningfulness in my heart. And so, but I've been through the worst, like the most torturous, every single day is pain and there's no stop to it. I've been through the worst experience, and And so yeah, and during that experience, every single day, all I could think about is focusing on not experiencing this terrible thing that's happening to me every single day. And so that really is a lot of motivation to do things differently. And I think also it's important to have some support from your social group, because if your social group is not in support of you or of what you want to do, um, for me that translated into, I want to do this, which means, specific things that I want to do, but my parents are not on board with it, and they're actually very much against that. But I want to do it. Like, that's where my heart is. That's what I really want in my life, and I passionately feel about what I want at those times, at that time, and so I do it. And but when there's a lot of opposition coming at you, when you're trying to do something that you're very passionate, that you really care a lot about, that you apply a lot of mindset towards, and when you're experiencing that, and it's coming from the people that are supposed to care about you the most, or at least that's how it feels. It's very difficult to experience that, even though prospectively the story is perceived from a very different side. And so yeah, everyone has their own side of the story. I think that's really important to point out, and that there's also different sides to the story, and that's really important to point out. And so yeah, having support is, that's kind of the cornerstone of where I am now. Otherwise, if I didn't have support, if they were always against me and what I really wanted, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I probably would just be increasingly worse and worse and worse. So yeah, I've been walking for about 45 minutes now, which is a nice vigorous. I feel vigor. I feel a little bit bad actually thinking about my emotional state that I'm in, even though it's positive. There's always that, especially trying to communicate it, I guess, in context of social media. I think that's a significant challenge right there. But yeah, but I don't know. I don't even want to say anything else anymore. It's very much alarm. You don't know who could be out there just with, they could have an honorable intent, but it's from their own perspective. And, reality is maybe often it's not black and white. There's a lot of variation to it. And, that variation might not be clear. And people might be very much in this mindset of this or that. It's either this way or that way. And so, yeah, I don't know what to say. Also, like my social experience with my condition, it's common for people to actually experience a lot of social isolation. And so at some point I thought, hey, I could set up a gaming computer. Initially, it was for like virtual reality, so I could have a way to be physically active in my room, and another way to be physically active on top of other ways that I have already. But yeah, so I started building up a computer, but then I realized that, hey, playing online games might be a good place to fill in that hole that I have where I need social interaction. And so yeah, really got into online games, and this is my next computer that I built. It's really nice, actually. Actually, I think I built it last year or something. It's on my desk. It kind of fits into the corner back there, right underneath my speaker. It's a very small footprint. I used to have it on the bottom of my desk, like under here. Where's a working treadmill desk? I used to have it on the bottom, but the cables, I had to get extension cables for everything, and it was actually not recommended to use extension cables for certain things, specifically my monitor cable. And so yeah, computer is on my desk, small footprint, pretty good, pretty powerful. I built it myself, which was, I used to build computers when I was younger for my dad and for my dad's business. He kind of taught me how to do it, and I taught my friend how to do it one time, and then he was really enjoying that. And so I haven't built myself a computer, and it was like 10 years that I hadn't built a computer. And so, I like just, I could buy stuff with these payment plans online that they offer nowadays, these micro loans. And so I just bought the parts and put together a computer, and I like it. It's pretty nice. I just upgraded my monitor, and so that I could have a better gaming experience. But yeah, it's still very suitable for reading, like papers. I haven't really read any scientific papers recently, aside for relating to my mom's current condition. And but yeah, I have my setup here that really makes it easy if I really need to, and it's all right here, all set up for me to, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm under stress, hey, get up on here, walk. Sitting down sometimes can be very stressful while you're trying to like learn something that's also increasing your degree of discomfort. So walking kind of is, I don't know how to summarize it, but yeah, there's a lot of things that it's just a really nice setup to have. I don't want to use it. I haven't been using it recently lately. I don't know. I just kind of gotten better at like learning how to read technical stuff, I guess. And so yeah. Also, another thing that recently changed, but it doesn't really apply anymore, is food assistance. Like, I'm eating a different diet than my parents, and I've been doing that for a really long time. And actually, I tried to ask for food money from the government because of what I was doing. I felt like I needed extra money. They should be able to give me extra money, but they didn't do that. They didn't allow it back then. And actually, like that was like 2 years later, not even 2 years later, it was like 4 years later, 5 years later, 4 years. I don't remember, but basically, I think it was like actually the next year they started introducing that, so I could I could apply for extra food money, and I did. And I wasn't working much at the time, but I was getting a lot of food money, and it really made a huge difference to turn around my eating experience. Especially, I was already having problems with eating food. I didn't have to think about, oh, I can't afford that, or I want to get that, but I'm not sure, not this time, maybe next time, or when I have more money. None of that. It was just all like that. I'm filling up my cart with stuff, and it's a very different stress experience when you're buying food without this sense of, you want to not spend so much money. When you're buying food without any kind of limitations, I guess. There's still limitations. It's not that much money, but it's still an incredibly a lot more amount of money compared to not having that money. And so yeah, so I started working recently, Uber Eats delivery, where you deliver not just food, but virtually anything. You shop for people at the market, or you pick up deliveries like pharmaceutical medication, and deliver it to patients. And there's really no limit to what someone could buy and have it delivered. And so yeah, I've been doing that for now. Like, this is the second year actually, where it was like 2 years ago, it was pretty good. Like, wow, I made that much money. That's huge. And so, but then last year was like even more. It was like double that much. And I imagine this year I'm getting good at it. I'll make way more than last year. But then there's I'm not sure, the question of if I'm still going to be able to qualify for disability payments. And so that's a bit stressful. Fortunately, I think it's a bit nuanced in terms of how they make their decision. And so, I live my life in a very unique way that's very different from the general norm. And so I just I say my story. I tell my story when I'm filling out the paperwork. I can't really just fill out A or B or the questionnaire. I kind of really have to put my own personal story, my own experience in the back of the application. And that's actually how I started with getting requesting disability benefits from the government. Because I didn't feel like I had my experience, my personal experience was very different than the other side of the story of my perceived experience. And so yeah, I had my own side of the story, and it didn't feel right to ask for money. My mom encouraged me, and I didn't feel right, but what kind of the thing that I was able to do, which was just to tell my story, and that's what I did. And so that's when I first started receiving disability benefits. And so yeah, hopefully maybe so this year I'm probably going to make a lot more. Like I want to make so much more money that it doesn't even matter like not receiving my disability benefits. But right now it still matters because it's like, but I want to be in a place where like I save up enough money, and then I could put all that money, I could put like a whole bunch of money into my savings. And so like my goal was to save up a lot of money in this CalAble bank account that also recently just was created for people with disabilities. Before, we could not save more than $2,000 before our disability benefits were cut. Not all of the benefits, but just part of the benefits were like if you have over $2,000 and you don't receive a portion of certain benefits. And so yeah, there's always that $2,000 limit. And so the most I ever saved while under that limit was like, I think it was like $700, and that was huge. I was like, I saved so much money, and like I feel accomplished. And so yeah, so yeah, my goal is to still be free by having support from the government, having a sense of freedom of, I don't know how to say it. Like I could work like an incredible amount, but then there's times where I can't do it, and I just need to stop. I just need to clear my mind and just break free from this whole craziness, and just go spend some time in nature. And so so I was thinking, I could save up a lot of money to the degree where I would be making a lot of interest from that money, and maybe even I could live off of that interest. And so yeah, that's like, I'm thinking about buying a car recently, especially for the Uber Eats delivery. Most definitely safety is a huge priority when I'm spending a lot more time on the road. It's a preoccupation, driving as a preoccupation. You have increased risk of, having accidents. And so I was thinking about, investing money in a really good car where I don't have to worry if I get in a car accident. But then there's also too, like, am I still going to be getting my benefits if I'm in that position to be able to afford a car? And so yeah, but and then like, if I work all that hard work and then I lose my benefits, then that's a cause for alarm. I don't want to lose my benefits. But for me, I've been disabled. I've been receiving benefits since like 2010 or 2009. So that's quite some time. It's 16 years now. And so for me in my position, because I've been disabled for so long, and it's easier to request that my benefits be reinstated. So yeah, I was looking at my photo that I took for my transit bus pass card, and I remember when I was there, I felt like really, really good. I'm really in a positive headspace now. I feel way better than I was before. But I see myself in that photo, and my face, I look emaciated. I don't know, like my cheekbones are like protruding because my face is so thin, but I don't look good. I look like, there's a physical challenge that I'm facing. And so yeah, I was facing a bit of a physical challenge. I think I was also improving from where I was like physically from before, but it is very confusing to weigh what, positive within the negative experience. It's really difficult to kind of like say this is this, or it's I can't really do that, especially in context of like trying to talk about it to someone. For me, I have my inherent sense of awareness about it, and I don't have any problem with that. The only problem is communicating it, especially if it's going to have a high potential for being misinterpreted. I can't handle that. Like, that's some of the hardest experiences that I've had with doctors, is on that basis of being interpreted as for something that I am not. And that was always a really difficult challenge. That was part of my doctor's experience. Sometimes it was actually pretty nice to experience kind of a shift of my sense of self in front of like a talk therapist, where the talk therapist is like, like they're like, I don't know how to say it. Just, I guess there's a sense of relief and a sense of, I feel like back to my old self. And it's talking about something that's not it's talking about, opposition towards everything that's happening to me, and like what really I'm going through, and all these challenges that come with, the experience that I'm having, and just being able to criticize that. And then she was very much in agreement with what I was believing, and that was very, very positive. I did not have any kind of speech impediment in that conversation with her, and I felt like I finally felt understood for who I actually am, rather than the sense of self that I'm being perceived, the external sense of myself that's being perceived outwardly. So yeah, inner self, outer self, two different things, especially in my experience. And to finally have kind of like this sense of I'm one, I guess, was a very, very, very positive experience I had with a talk therapist. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm all. I don't want to think of trying to think up anything else to say anymore. I kind of feel tired of talking, like emotionally tired. And so yeah, music. I can't even think about music. Yeah, there's a time and place for everything. And sometimes there's the listening to music. There's not a time and place for listening to music, especially maybe when you're under a threat of your life. Maybe that's a time where music doesn't even matter, or maybe it even becomes very annoying to have music playing when something's happening. Sometimes it's just nice to not feel the influence of emotions. That I think music is always that's kind of like the purpose of music, is to influence your emotions, to have some kind of emotional influence on you in a positive way. But sometimes, maybe that means that it's taking you away from, or it makes you feel like you're being taken away from being present in your own emotional experience, which already is very challenging to be present with. So yeah, I think I'm just going to stop.